Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. If you strip away the superhero tropes of a hit animated series like Invincible, you don't just find cool animation and crazy action sequences. You uncover this deeply relatable, kind of painful psychological tension. Today, we're looking at the fascinating underlying problem that the main character, Mark Grayson, is dealing with. And it's an issue that goes way beyond having superpowers. It's really about what happens when your personal evolution fundamentally breaks the reality you used to live in. So, we're going to skip the pleasantries and immediately ask the totally bizarre central question that makes Mark's situation so incredibly uncomfortable. Seriously, think about this for a second. If you suddenly possessed near invincibility, insane, godlike strength, and your everyday actions had global or even galactic importance, why on earth would you still try to live like a normal human? Like, why would high school drama, awkward dating, or pretending to fit in with teenagers even matter to you anymore? It's this exact paradox that makes the narrative so compelling. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute contradiction at the core of the show. We're looking at the physical reality of a literal god desperately clinging to the emotional expectations of a teenager. I mean, on one hand, you have cosmic power, right? Flying across continents in seconds, surviving these absolutely impossible blood-soaked battles, and directly influencing the fate of entire civilizations. But on the other hand, his mundane reality is still, well, incredibly grounded. Emotionally, he's still sweating over passing his math class and maintaining totally ordinary relationships. The sheer tension between these two realities is basically the engine driving the whole show. So, the crucial point here is that Mark isn't suffering because he needs to get stronger. He's suffering because he's fighting a losing battle to keep his innocent, normal self intact. His real struggle is trying to hold on to an ordinary human identity long after he has completely outgrown ordinary human reality. Most superhero stories focus on the hero needing to train harder, lift a heavier building, or just punch a bigger bad guy. But here, the core conflict is entirely internal. It's the agonizing friction of absolutely refusing to let go of an old version of yourself. He's constantly split between these two fundamentally incompatible worlds, and honestly, the tension of trying to make them fit together looks exhausting. Part of him is rapidly evolving, becoming incredibly powerful and stepping onto this massive cosmic stage. But the other part? It's desperately craving normality, holding on to innocence, and just wanting emotional simplicity. He wants a simple high school romance while simultaneously defending Earth from alien invasions. Those two worlds are completely destined to clash, and eventually they just stop fitting together entirely. Now, what's really fascinating here is the cold logic of the antagonist. From a purely analytical standpoint, Omni-Man, Mark's father, well, he's not entirely wrong. He looks at humanity through a much, much colder lens and explicitly calls out the lie Mark is living. To Omni-Man, a being of immense power playing dress-up as a normal human isn't just silly, it's entirely irrational. And the really uncomfortable truth of the show is that when you strip away our human sentimentality, Omni-Man's sheer logic actually holds a frightening amount of weight. Because the uncomfortable truth we all have to face is that once someone reaches a certain level of power, balancing superhuman responsibility with ordinary emotional expectations becomes literally impossible. Human systems just start feeling small. Think about it. When you can physically move a mountain, human laws, social expectations, and mundane daily routines suddenly seem incredibly fragile, almost arbitrary. Mark keeps trying to balance his superhuman responsibilities with totally ordinary emotional expectations, but the scale is just fundamentally broken. And we see this exact dynamic everywhere in human society. The more influence and capability someone gains, the harder it becomes for them to relate to the world normally. It's not just about comic book superpowers. Eventually, power just changes your perspective. We see this isolation happen in politics, where leaders become totally disconnected from everyday citizens. We see it in immense fame, where celebrities literally can no longer just run to the grocery store. We see it with extreme wealth or high-level leadership. The more influence a person accumulates, the more their everyday reality morphs, making it incredibly difficult to relate to the ordinary systems they used to navigate with ease. Which brings us to Section 2, the universal pivot. What happens when your evolution outpaces your environment? So, how does this fictional cosmic battle apply to the identity crisis you might be facing in your own life right now? Well, Mark keeps trying to force himself into normal relationships after his reality has shifted so dramatically. And why is this so painful for him? It's because of a harsh, undeniable truth. Not everyone can fully come with you. It sounds brutal, right? It sounds harsh, but it is an undeniably real aspect of growing up and moving forward in life. As you become capable of more across the crucial areas of your life, your entire reality changes. We naturally evolve and grow in various dimensions, whether that's mentally, financially, spiritually, or socially. You might read books that completely shatter and rebuild your worldview. You might start a business that drastically alters your financial reality. Maybe you undergo a massive spiritual awakening or significantly elevate your social circles. As you level up in these areas, your world fundamentally shifts, and you start operating on a completely different frequency than you used to. Yet the exhausting tragedy here is watching how many people secretly cram themselves back into outdated limiting boxes just to maintain the illusion of emotional simplicity. Just like Mark trying to be a normal high schooler, so many of us evolve, but then force ourselves right back into old roles, old mindsets, and old environments just to avoid making waves. We dim our own light. We play small to fit in with childhood friends or stick with a comfortable but totally stagnant job, all to just feel normal and avoid the discomfort of outgrowing our surroundings. Trying to maintain those old versions of life forever becomes absolutely exhausting. I really want you to ask yourself, is the friction in your life right now actually a problem with your environment, or is it deep identity conflict born from resisting your own growth? Maybe Mark Grayson's pain comes solely from the fact that he absolutely refuses to accept what he has become. Apply that to yourself for a second. Are you suffering because you are resisting the person you've actually evolved into? The real heartbreak we see on screen, and honestly in ourselves, isn't about external battles. The true tragedy of Invincible isn't the graphic violence or the cosmic villains. It's the story of a powerful being desperately trying to preserve an identity he has already completely outgrown. It is pure, concentrated identity conflict, plain and simple. Ultimately, the hardest part of personal growth isn't becoming stronger or smarter or more successful. The actual painful work is looking in the mirror and accepting that you are no longer who you used to be. It demands the courage to grieve that past self, let go of the comfort of the normal you used to know, and bravely step into your new reality. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What outdated version of yourself are you desperately trying to save, and what could you achieve if you finally let them go?